Have you ever felt like reality itself is just, I don't know, pushing back against you?
Oh, definitely. Like really pushing back.
Right, like you're caught between these massive opposing currents of life,
Hmm.
and the systems around you that you rely on every single day to just function are starting to fail.
It's a profoundly isolating feeling, honestly. When the friction of just existing starts to feel less like, you know, a string of bad luck and more like a structural design flaw in your universe.
Yeah, you start wondering if the environment itself is somehow actively rejecting you.
Exactly.
And today's deep dive explores exactly that feeling, but we're looking at it through this incredibly unique, wildly cosmic lens. We're unpacking this fascinating piece of lore published in Bibebibebibe magazine on March 25th, 2026.
It's such a great piece.
It really is. It's titled Saikou Venga, the Multiversal Ark.
We should probably clarify the format right up front, though, because, well, this isn't your standard sci-fi comic or a simple serial story.
Right, it's a lot denser than that.
Way denser. The creator is Dr. Melvin Sewell, the academic dean at the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies in IX. And according to Dr. Sewell, the lore of Saikou Venga isn't meant for casual entertainment.
No,
He actually designed it as a diagnostic tool. He specifically calls it mythic infrastructure.
Mythic infrastructure. I mean, that is such a heavy phrase. It sounds like something you use to test the load-bearing walls of your own sanity.
That's a great way to put it, honestly.
But I'm still kind of struggling to wrap my head around how a story acts as a diagnostic tool. Like, what are we actually diagnosing here?
So the lore is meant to expose what Dr. Sewell terms systemic erosion and ritualized containment.
Okay, meaning?
Meaning, when you read Saikou Venga's journey, you are essentially running a stress test on your own relationship with the systems you live inside.
Oh, well.
Yeah. The narrative forces you to look at how a system degrades, how it tries to trap anomalies to preserve itself, and how an individual survives that crushing pressure.
Okay, so our mission today is to decode this intense narrative and figure out what its mechanics mean for you, the listener, as you navigate your own complex reality.
Exactly. But to understand how this diagnostic tool works, we first have to understand the anomaly at the center of it all.
Right, Saikou Venga himself, because where does he actually come from? He isn't just born on some random planet.
No, he emerges from a rift.
Yeah, he's born exactly in the microscopic sliver of space between two opposing cosmic forces, which the lore calls slip flow and counterflow.
The physics of his origin are so crucial here, because slip flow and counterflow aren't like physical places you can visit.
Right.
They're diametrically opposed states of being in this multiverse.
Yeah.
Think of slip flow as an overwhelming current of forward momentum and acceleration.
Just constant pushing forward.
Exactly. While counterflow is pure regression, it's a crushing force of stagnation, pushing back against any movement at all.
So Saikou isn't a product of one or the other?
No, he is the physical manifestation of the collision between them.
Which makes me think of tectonic plates. Being caught between slip flow and counterflow is like being crushed between two shifting continents.
It is total systemic gridlock.
Yeah, there's nowhere to move without immense friction. And because of where he's born, he is marked by this phenomenon called the SH1 resonance.
Which is such a fascinating mechanic in the lore.
It really is. The lore describes it as both a curse and a gift. The SH1 symbols don't just like magically appear on him. They physically burn into his skin, binding him to something ancient.
Right.
And reading that, I found myself pausing because if the SH1 resonance physically burns your skin and binds you to ancient pain, at what point does a gift just become a parasite?
Well, you're assuming the universe cares about the distinction between a gift and a parasite.
Fair point.
What's fascinating here is the absolute duality of power and structural integrity. In this mythos, you cannot access multiversal power without paying a physical toll.
It always costs something.
Always. The resonance is what allows Saikou to interact with these cosmic forces, to not just be instantly crushed by them, but the cost of admission is constant, agonizing friction.
So the power itself is what's hurting him.
The power is inherently destabilizing. It perfectly mirrors Dr. Sewell's theme of systemic erosion.
How so?
Well, when we try to wield forces that are larger than ourselves, whether that's cosmic energy in this lore or, say, massive institutional influence in the real world, it erodes the vessel holding it.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. The SH1 resonance is a gift because it grants agency in a gridlocked universe. But it acts like a parasite because the agency is literally burning him up from the inside.
And this physical destabilization means Saikou can't just casually stroll through the multiverse.
Definitely not.
He is constantly degrading. Which leads me to the part of the lore that honestly gave me the most anxiety.
The HUD.
Yes,
Yeah.
the analyzer HUD. How does he even know he's approaching a breaking point before it's too late? He has this heads-up display that constantly feeds him terrifying truths.
Just a relentless stream of bad news.
Literally. It tells him his coherence is failing, it tells him his collapse probability is rising, and that danger is approaching. I read this and immediately thought of a wearable doom-scrolling device.
That is so accurate.
It's like a permanent anxiety meter strapped directly to your optic nerve.
It acts as a quantifiable measure of your own undoing.
But here is where I get stuck. If you have a screen constantly telling you that your personal reality's collapse probability is rising, isn't that just a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like, does the HUD actually help him survive, or does it just induce the panic that ultimately destroys him?
I think we have to reframe that a bit. The HUD is a brutal metaphor for hyper-awareness.
Okay, yeah.
In our modern world, we have access to endless streams of data about economic collapse, environmental decay, social friction. We all basically have our own version of the analyzer HUD flashing red in our pockets.
Our phones, yeah.
Right. And it certainly can induce paralysis. But in Saikou's case, he doesn't have the luxury of looking away.
Because the danger is real and immediate.
Exactly. The HUD's warnings are the trigger mechanism for his survival protocols. Without the warning, he would just quietly disintegrate. The fear is what prompts the action.
And the action he takes is what the lore calls arc formations.
Yes, this is where we get into the actual mechanics of how one survives in a hostile system.
To combat the failing coherence that the HUD is screaming about, Saikou relies on this rigorous 5-stage ritual.
The stages are resonance, geometry, correction, intent, and finally the deployment of the slip-flow edge.
It sounds incredibly methodical, but what does it actually mean to correct your geometry in a multiversal sense?
Think of it as multiversal load-bearing.
Okay.
When the HUD warns of an impending collapse, Saikou first has to find the resonance, the specific frequency of the crushing force hitting him.
Like tuning into the right radio station.
Right. Then comes geometry. He cannot overpower the multiverse, so he has to physically and mentally align himself to the gravitational vectors of the space he's in. He is shifting his stance, altering his mindset, finding the exact angle where the counterflow glides off him rather than crushing him flat.
And then correction.
Correction involves micro-adjustments for unexpected variables. Intent is the sheer force of will to hold that impossible posture.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And only after all that mental and physical alignment can he deploy the slip-flow edge, which is the kinetic release of energy, to slice through the pressure.
Oh, I love that breakdown. He is taking the formless, crushing pressure of the multiverse and forcing it into a shape he can manage.
Precisely.
It's a brilliant analogy for how we process information overload. When our own personal HUDs are flashing red, when we are burnt out, overwhelmed, terrified of the news cycle, we need our own mental rituals to maintain stability.
We really do.
We create schedules, we build boundaries, we go for a run at the exact same time every day, we correct our geometry just to keep standing under the weight of it all.
We impose a rigid structure to survive the friction of the environment, but we have to look deeper at the source of that friction.
Why is his coherence failing so rapidly in the first place?
Right. What is the environment actually throwing at him?
Well, the environment is deeply hostile. The lore describes a reality that is actively hunting Saikou.
It's not just passive gravity.
No, he's facing down actual entities called counterflow mimics, coherence predators, and getting trapped in these terrifying dead zones called null flow pockets.
Just absolute nightmares.
To fight back against these threats, he wields something called the TrueFlow force.
But the text is very specific about the cost of using that force. It says, chains of cosmic energy crackle as Saikou bends the multiverse, but his coherence shatters with every pulse.
That imagery is wild.
Isn't it?
Using this TrueFlow force sounds exactly like taking out a payday loan on your own soul.
A payday loan. Okay, how so?
Well, you get the massive burst of cosmic energy you desperately need right now to fight off a coherence predator, right?
Right.
But the interest rate is your core stability. You are borrowing against your own future existence. You shatter yourself to save yourself.
I like that. But I would actually push back on the payday loan metaphor just a bit.
Oh.
Yeah, because a loan implies a transactional debt. You borrow something, you pay it back.
True.
TrueFlow force operates much more like an extreme autoimmune response.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Your body spikes a Ph.D to kill off a pathogen, But if the fever gets too high, it starts cooking your own organs.
Wow. Yeah, that is bleak.
You aren't borrowing energy, you are actively cannibalizing your own structural integrity to generate heat.
Hmm.
And we need to zero in on a specific phrase the lore uses regarding these threats.
Which one?
It says, reality itself hunts Saikou Venga.
Yeah, that stood out to me too. It isn't a specific villain with a vendetta. It is reality itself.
Exactly. If we look at this through Dr. Sewell's lens of a diagnostic tool,
Hmm.
the mimics and the coherence predators aren't just random bad guys in a sci-fi story.
They're symbols.
They're the multiverse's immune system. Think about how a biological body reacts to a foreign entity, or how a massive bureaucracy reacts to a whistleblower.
Right. The system sends out agents to attack, contain, and eradicate the disruption so it can return to a baseline state of order.
So the universe is undergoing what Sewell called ritualized containment.
Wait, hold on. I'm struggling with the implications of this.
What do you mean?
If the entire multiverse, the immune system of reality, views Saikou as a virus that needs to be contained, and the system is just acting naturally to protect itself,
Yeah.
it forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. What if the multiverse is right? Are we supposed to be rooting against our own protagonist?
And that tension is the exact pivot point of the entire narrative. It brings us to the paradigm shift.
The dark truth revealed in chapters 7 and 8.
Yes.
Saikou is surrounded by failed versions of himself and corrupted data. And he has this massive realization. He is the anomaly the multiverse fears.
He isn't the savior.
He isn't the chosen one trying to fix a broken system. He is the glitch.
The problem isn't that the multiverse is broken. The problem is that Saikou's very existence violates its core programming.
Imagine looking around at the wreckage of your life, looking for the bad guy who ruined everything, and suddenly realizing the call is coming from inside the house.
A terrifying moment.
You are the anomaly. How do you justify fighting back once you know you're the problem? Why not just let the coherence predators take you and restore order?
To understand how Saikou justifies his survival, we have to look really closely at Dr. Sewell's sovereign diagnostic disclaimer.
Right, which is attached directly to the bottom of the source material.
It's an incredibly specific piece of academic text. And we should be very clear here. We are just impartially reporting on Sewell's concepts.
Absolutely. We aren't taking any political sides here.
Right. Dr. Sewell explicitly states that these materials are not affiliated with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group.
He makes that very clear.
He mandates that the interpretations and collapse protocols are not institutional critiques from the left or the right.
Which is important to note because it's so easy to map a story about fighting the system onto whatever real-world political battle is happening today.
It really is.
But Sewell is saying, no, we are looking at this impartially. This isn't a political allegory. It's purely structural.
Exactly. We're looking strictly at the mechanics of existence. Dr. Sewell calls the lore a cinematic indictment of how individuals interact with decaying systems.
A cinematic indictment.
Yes, and he frames Saikou's journey as a sovereign broadcast.
A sovereign broadcast, meaning stating your right to exist independently of the system's permission.
The mechanics of that are fascinating because Saikou's defiance isn't based on objective morality.
He isn't arguing that he is good and the multiverse is evil.
Right. The multiverse is just a machine trying to balance its equations.
Yeah.
Saikou's sovereign broadcast is simply the assertion of his own existence.
He accepts his nature as the anomaly.
He acknowledges that he's the glitch, but he refuses to be erased just because a massive, unfeeling system demands uniformity.
Which perfectly sets up that unforgettable final panel in the lore.
Oh, it's so good.
Saikou is standing in a collapsing slip-flow corridor. Everything is falling apart around him. The immune system of reality is closing in.
Total chaos.
And his response to the realization that he is the glitch, he just stands there and says, if the multiverse wants me gone, it can try harder.
It is the ultimate rejection of ritualized containment.
Yeah.
He knows his coherence is failing. He knows his analyzer HUD is flashing red. He knows the entire gravitational weight of reality is coming for him, and he holds his geometry anyway.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
That's the real question.
We started this deep dive talking about that feeling of reality pushing back against you. And while you might not be bending the multiverse with TrueFlow force or fighting off counterflow mimics.
Let's hope not.
Right. But everyone has days where their personal coherence feels like it's failing under the weight of external pressures.
We all navigate spaces where we feel the immense friction between our true selves and the expectations of the environments we inhabit.
Definitely.
We all have moments where we feel the burn of the SH1 resonance, that harsh duality of the unique gifts we possess, and the heavy toll it takes to utilize them in a world that wasn't built for us.
We all use our own arc formations. We try to correct our geometry to survive the daily grind, to not be crushed by the counterflow of
Oh,
life.
I do.
But the journey of Saikou Venga takes us from painful, gridlocked origins to a uniquely defiant realization. And that brings us to the final thought we want to leave you with today.
A question not just of survival, but of what comes next.
Exactly. We've talked a lot about the struggle of existing inside a system that wants to erase you. But let's look beyond the collapsing corridor.
Right, beyond the immediate survival.
Think about the systems you exist in right now, your workplace, your community, your daily routines. If you discover that you are the anomaly and you successfully reject the system's attempts to contain you, what happens after you break the machinery?
That's such a heavy thought.
If you survive the friction and proudly stand as the glitch that the system couldn't digest, what kind of reality are you going to build in the wreckage?
It requires a profound shift in perspective. Once you stop burning all your energy just trying to fit into the geometry of a decaying universe, you suddenly have the power to draw your own blueprints.
Keep questioning the reality around you, keep an eye on your own analyzer HUD, and start thinking about the blueprints you want to draw. Until the next deep dive, remember, sometimes realizing you are the problem for the system is the first step to becoming the architect of something entirely new. Thanks for joining us.